The United States and the EU have reached a framework for a trade agreement imposing 15% tariffs on most EU goods just days before the August 1st deadline. Phil, what are the implications for the EU and U.S. economies and consumers?
For U.S. consumers and producers, this is better than the alternative of tariffs of 25 or 30%. Though it should be noted that a 15% tariff across the board is quite a bit higher than has been historically the case for the U.S. economy. Before these actions, the U.S. average tariff rate was around 2.2%. The European tariff rate was about 2.7%. So this is a very large increase in tariffs. That said, there are key provisions where there are 0 for 0 tariffs on certain products, including airplane parts, which will reduce the burden. For the EU, this is a bit of a mixed bag. This is certainly better than the higher tariffs that were being threatened by the Trump administration, but a 15% tariff on exports to the United States is still quite substantial. For economies that have relatively high exposure to the United States market, including Germany and Italy, this is a very large impact on their economic models. German GDP is expected to fall by about 1% as a result of this increase in tariffs.
Do the lack of details in the trade agreement signal that the provisions are subject to change?
The lack of detail is similar to other agreements or framework agreements that we've seen countries enter into. Even where there are details, often the detailed readouts from one party differ from the other. This does indicate that many of the finer points will be worked out over time. On top of this, it should be noted these are definitely not permanent agreements. A permanent trade agreement for the United States has to be passed by Congress. All of the authorities that the administration is using to enact these tariffs are temporary emergency authorities, which can be reversed by the courts potentially in the coming weeks, or at the very least by a following administration. So these should really be thought of as more of a temporary detente in trade relations more than a permanent new architecture of trade relations.
What does this deal mean for other global trade alliances?
Because these tariffs should be thought of as temporary, it's hard to say exactly how these will reshape broader trading situations. Especially for Europe, their trading relationship now is largely dependent on both the US and the Chinese market. And as that becomes less and less tenable as China and the United States move further apart, this will certainly have impacts on the broader economic relationship that Europe has with its largest trading partners.